Hello, good human. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy, and I'm your non-judgmental infidelity coach. If you are cheating on your partner or having an affair or engaging in anything you think counts as infidelity, I can help you deal with your feelings, clarify what you want, and make decisions about what you're going to do. No shame, no blame, no judgments. So, in today's video, we are going to talk about the question of if you don't leave your marriage to pursue a relationship with your affair partner, will you regret it? A couple of weeks ago, I shared a video called If You Leave Your Marriage for Your Affair Partner, Will You Regret It? And somebody posted a comment saying, can you please talk about regret for not leaving? Meaning regret for not leaving the marriage to be with your affair partner. And the answer is yes, we absolutely are going to talk about that because as weird as this might sound, I love to talk about regret. As I talked about in that other video, people do sometimes experience regret about or related to the relationship choices they make. This is definitely a thing that happens, but that doesn't mean that you have to experience regret. And of course, more specifically, sometimes people who are married and are having an affair choose to stay married and end the affair relationship and do come to regret that decision. That does happen. And today I'm first going to talk about why some people regret that decision. Then I will talk about how you can approach this decision if this is the situation you're in and make a decision that you are less likely to regret. Okay? So here's what I see happening pretty regularly. Someone will be married and they'll be involved with someone else. They will be having what we typically consider to be an affair. And the person who is married and having the affair may have a good relationship with their spouse and a pretty good life overall with their spouse. They may have a family with their spouse and they may really love their family and the way their family functions and is configured. They may really like their home. They may really like their lifestyle. But they may feel like the relationship they have with their spouse is no longer a particularly romantic relationship. They may have a very good connection with their spouse as a friend, and as a family member, and as a co-parent, perhaps if there are kids involved, but they don't have the kind of connection with them that they would ideally like to have with someone who they are ostensibly romantically involved with. And then on the other hand, they have an amazing relationship with their affair partner. They may have a connection with their affair partner that includes everything they ever wanted in a romantic relationship and then some. And they may really want to experience their affair relationship as a non-affair relationship. They may really want to have a full life with their affair partner, the person who's now their affair partner. But then they start to think about what leaving their marriage would actually be like, and they start to freak out for lots of reasons. For one thing, we collectively have this bias that if you're married, it's better to stay married than to get divorced, just in general. We tend to think of staying married as an absolute good. A lot of people tell me that they think that if they get divorced, they will have failed at marriage. And this idea really bothers them because they don't want to be a person who fails at anything ever. That's one thing. And then also, when people start to think about all of the specifics of getting divorced, they don't like the idea of dealing with any of them. And these specifics include all kinds of things like financial challenges, challenges maybe, but changes definitely. Financial changes and or challenges, logistical changes and or challenges, changes in living arrangements, changes in relationships with other people, changes in how much time you spend with your kids if you have kids. And also the actual process of making these changes, which may entail talking with your spouse or future ex-spouse about finances, about separating assets, about living separately, about splitting up time with the kids, about all of the other changes that go into divorce can start to seem really unpleasant. And so what a lot of people do is say, oh my God, all of this would be so horrible. I can't imagine actually going through the process of a divorce, and I can't stand the idea of the actual changes themselves once they got made, right? There's the process of making change, and then there's living with the changes, and I don't like the idea of either of those things. For instance, a lot of people are really bothered by the idea of having less money. A lot of people are really bothered by the idea of moving to a smaller home or a smaller dwelling. A lot of folks who live in a house tell me, there's no way I could go from living in my nice house to living in an apartment, right? I know some of you can relate to this. In addition to that, a lot of people get really worried about what other people will think of them if they leave their marriage, especially if people find out that they were cheating on their spouse. A lot of people are like, I cannot be the person who left their marriage because they were having an affair. I cannot be the person who broke up their family. On top of all of the things that I've already said, when people start seriously considering divorce, they often start to think to themselves, well, actually, my life is pretty good. My spouse and I don't have a horrible relationship. My overall life circumstances are pretty darn great. My family is happy. Why would I throw all of that away? And then, as if all of that weren't enough, some people who are entertaining all of the thoughts and questions I've just mentioned start to say to themselves, well, what if my affair relationship isn't real anyway? What if I leave my marriage for my affair partner only to find out 6 months later that I'm not all that excited to be with my affair partner anyway? Put together, all of the kinds of thoughts and questions that I have just mentioned can create some pretty intense doubt. People who were considering leaving their marriage in order to be with their affair partner may start to feel completely and totally panicked by the idea of getting divorced, and completely and totally averse to the idea of giving up the life they have worked so hard to create, which may be pretty darn good in some respects, or very good in some respects, or a lot of respects. And so from this state of panic, sticking with the status quo, staying married, not pursuing a life with your affair partner, may start to seem like a fantastic idea. Similarly, if you've started to convince yourself that your relationship with your affair partner can't possibly last, it may seem like you would be crazy to leave your comfortable life behind in order to pursue a relationship with your affair partner, right? So from a state of thinking this way and feeling this way, sometimes people just say, oh my God, the decision is clear. I can't give up my current life. I can't make the changes I would have to make in order to have a non-relationship with my affair partner. So of course I'm going to break it off with them and make the best of my marriage and make the best of my life as it is currently configured. And so what do? They break up with their affair partner. And at first, if you do this, or if one does this, you may feel relieved, or they may feel relieved. Because after all, a decision has been made, and just making a decision and simplifying a complicated situation can feel pretty great. And if you've ended your affair and stopped engaging in infidelity, that might feel pretty great too. You might not have felt good at all about engaging in infidelity, and putting an end to that may feel awesome. And it's reasonable to feel awesome about both of these things. Making a decision, ceasing to engage in infidelity might feel pretty good. Fair enough. But then sometimes what happens is some time passes. And the initial relief that came from making a decision, and the initial relief that came from ceasing to engage in infidelity, fades. And then you, the person who broke up with their affair partner, start to realize that you really aren't all that enthusiastic about staying in your marriage. You may have been able to convince yourself to stay when you were stressed out and just trying to make things simpler. But now that you're out of the fog of panic, you start to recognize that you really don't enjoy what you currently have. And then you might start thinking, damn it, I shouldn't have let my affair partner go after all. They were the unicorn and I let the unicorn get away. But what a lot of people do when they find themselves in that kind of a situation is they don't actually do anything with this recognition. They just ruminate about their situation, and they often convince themselves that two things are true. One is that they truly couldn't have left their marriage and still can't leave their marriage. Two, their former affair partner was the person for them, and now that person is gone forever, and all hope of ever being in a satisfying romantic relationship is lost. And guess what? That kind of thinking can generate a lot of regret. And if this is the way you continue thinking about your choices, you will almost certainly continue to feel a lot of regret. So what's the solution here? How can we avoid, or at least greatly reduce the chances that we will not regret not pursuing a relationship with our affair partner if we choose to remain married and not pursue a relationship with our affair partner? My answer to this question has 5 parts. First of all, if you are married, if you are considering leaving your marriage, it is essential for you to recognize that this could seem like a really big decision for you. Many people regard the decision of whether or not to leave their marriage as a major life decision, and I think that's reasonable in many cases. However, what a lot of people start to do is freak out the moment that that decision starts to seem overwhelming or scary. And when they start to feel overwhelmed or scared or completely terrified, they start to convince themselves that they should not be considering the very thing that seems scary to do, right? So in other words, if people start to think seriously about the possibility of divorce, and divorce seems terrifying, people often say to themselves, well, I just shouldn't get divorced. It seems scary, so obviously I shouldn't do it. And so they break up with their affair partner and then stay married. Now, I do want to make it clear that I'm not suggesting that you necessarily want to get divorced. Maybe you don't. Maybe upon careful consideration, you decide that you really do want to stay married and you are willing to relinquish your relationship with your affair partner. That is one possible outcome. But here's the problem. When we start to freak out and get totally scared because we're facing a decision that seems really big to us, we tend to skip the careful consideration part. We tend to feel so uncomfortable being scared that we run to safety, or what we think of as safety. And what that can mean in practice in the situation we're talking about is that we shut down the idea of leaving our marriage before we have thoroughly and systematically considered it. So here's what we have to be able to do. We have to be able to intellectually recognize that some decisions in life may be pretty scary to consider. And we have the opportunity to decide that we're willing to consider these decisions and deal with the fear instead of running away from it, right? And in the process of doing this, we may want to learn how to tolerate our most uncomfortable emotions. If we don't have the capacity to tolerate feeling fear, of course we're going to freak out when we feel fear. But if we're able to skillfully relate to the feeling of fear, feeling fear no longer needs to be a reason to avoid a decision that seems scary. So we really want to learn how to relate to our uncomfortable emotions instead of reacting when we feel uncomfortable emotions. And most of us don't know how to do this or haven't had much practice doing this well. But that's okay, because help is available. I know how to do this, and I can teach you how to do this too. So this is really important, and I want to recap. Considering that recognizing whether or not you want to leave your marriage might be really scary for you, being willing to tolerate that fear and learning how to tolerate that fear is super important if you want to make a decision that you don't regret. Here's the second really important thing you can do to prevent regretting a decision about your relationships. You can systematically and deliberately consider why you might want to stay married. Systematically and deliberately consider why you might want to leave your marriage and pursue a relationship with your affair partner. This might seem like a really simple thing to do, and it is a simple thing to do, but a lot of people either skip this step entirely or don't do it very well. And there are a lot of reasons why this happens, but because there are, without listing all the reasons, let me just say that because there are so many reasons, it can be really helpful to have a coach who can help you systematically and deliberately consider your options when you're facing an important choice about your relationships. Our minds love to freak out when we're facing decisions that seem scary. And it can be really helpful to have me help you deal with your freakouts and help you make your decision-making process rigorous and structured rather than haphazard. The third really important thing you need to do to reduce the chances of making a decision you'll regret is get really clear on what you think you would be giving up if you were to make a particular choice. I alluded to this earlier. A lot of people who have a marriage that is good or okay or even pretty great in some respects often think they would be giving up a stable relationship if they were to leave their marriage. And they may really value having a stable relationship. People who like their material circumstances are often concerned they would be giving up a comfortable life if they were to leave their marriage. And they may not want to give up what they consider to be a comfortable life. Whatever the specifics are for you, it's really important to get clear on what you think you would be giving up if you were to leave your marriage. And you also want to get clear on what you think you would be giving up if you were to leave your affair partner. If you ended your relationship with your affair partner, what would you have to relinquish? Perhaps a uniquely wonderful connection with a uniquely wonderful person. Perhaps a whole bunch of other things. Whatever it is for you, get specific. If I pursue path A, what do I give up? If I pursue path B, what do I give up? Get really clear on those things. Then, after you do that, you can do the fourth thing, which is to decide what you are willing to relinquish. Making a decision requires you to say no to some things so that you can fully say yes to other things. And getting really clear on what you are willing to say no to and why you're willing to say no to it is super important. This is one of the greatest preventers or mitigators of regret that I know of. But this is the part that a lot of people really don't like. They don't want to give anything up. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They don't want to decide to relinquish anything. And on the one hand, I'm totally sympathetic to this. It can be really painful to give up something we value or appreciate or love or enjoy. If you're resisting that, I get it. But there are lots of times in life when we really can't have our cake and eat it too. It just doesn't work. So if we're going to make a decision about our relationships and pursue a direction, a particular direction, we have to relinquish something. And being really conscious of what exactly we are willing to relinquish and why we are willing to relinquish it is super important. So for instance, you might say to yourself, I really love my affair partner, and I really enjoy the amazing sex we have. And I am as sure as I can possibly be that if I stay with my spouse, we would never be able to create the kind of connection that I have with my affair partner, no matter what I did to change our relationship and no matter what my spouse could possibly do to change our relationship. But I'm okay with giving up my affair partner because I value the life that I get to keep if I stay with my spouse more than I value the amazing connection I have with my affair partner. So given that, I'm willing to let my affair partner go. Sadly, with great sadness, I will let them go, but I will let them go. Or you might come to the conclusion that even though you really like the idea of not being the person who gets divorced, and you really like the comfortable life you have created with your spouse, you are willing to give those things up because you really, really, really want to have a shot at a non-affair relationship with your affair partner. You know that you might have to live in an apartment for a while, and you don't love the idea of that, but you're willing to do it because having a relationship with your affair partner is more important to you than continuing to live in your house, even if you really like your house. So get ruthlessly honest with yourself about what you're willing to give up and why you're willing to give it up. And then step 5, make your decision, and commit to making the best of it, knowing that whatever you choose to do, you may be sad about something, you may long for something, you may miss something or some things. So if you decide to stay married, commit to making the best out of staying married. Remember the reasons why you chose to stay married, and then intentionally enjoy those things. And if you miss your affair partner, trust that it's okay to miss them. And remember that you chose to let them go for reasons you considered good. Might it still be sad not to have your affair partner in your life? Sure, absolutely. But you don't have to make that sadness a bigger deal than it needs to be. Major life decisions tend to come with mixed emotions. You can embrace that, and you can decide that it's worth it to be sad sometimes because on the whole, you like the decision that you made for yourself. Missing your affair partner, if you chose to end your relationship with them, does not need to be a reason to regret your decision not to continue your relationship with them. You can miss someone without making that mean that you made the wrong choice. But that said, if you find yourself missing your affair partner, it's a lot easier to deal with those feelings when you are as sure as you can possibly be that you made the choice to leave them for clear reasons that you like. Hence the earlier steps in this exercise. All right, people. If you are trying to make a decision about whether or not to stay married or whether to pursue a relationship with your affair partner, it can be really helpful to have some expert guidance as you consider your options. As I've talked about today, our minds tend to freak out when we are making decisions that seem big and consequential. So it can be really helpful to have a wise guide who can help you navigate your decision-making process. If you want my wise guidance, there are 2 ways you can have me as your coach. Number 1, you can enroll in my online course, You're Not the Only One. This course contains tools and teachings that go beyond what I offer here on YouTube. And even more importantly, the course contains assignments that will help you apply my teachings to the specifics of your infidelity situation. When you enroll in You're Not the Only One, you get 24/7 access to all of the course materials so you can work on your own schedule and at your own pace. Or if you want to have me as your private coach, we can work together one-on-one via Zoom. If you'd like to do that, the first step is to schedule an introductory coaching session with me. And you can do both of these things through my website. You can enroll in the course or schedule your introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. All right, my friends, thank you for joining me today. Until next time, bye for now.